What's up, guys? Welcome to the channel. I'm Chris Slater, retired F-16 pilot. What you see behind me is actually a film from 1979. So I took this from a film from 1979 called UFOs Are Real. This would show Tic Tacs, so the same things we've been seeing around the Catalina Islands in the Nimitz, 2004, by David Fravor. These would be exactly what I would imagine a Tic Tac would look like, filmed in 1966. This film, called UFOs Are Real, from over 40 years ago, goes through and shows tons of evidence, basically the same level of evidence that we have now, exactly the same. So it does get sort of frustrating. Are we going to end up in the same situation after these hearings come out? Is anything actually moving in the UFO disclosure realm? I talked to Nick Pope. He's been investigating for 30 years. He was the MOD officer for the UK. He actually was the desk officer for UFOs. He answered the phone and would try and divert the public's attention actually away from the UFO issue. I talked with Nick Pope on UAP Society YouTube channel and asked him about this in particular. So let's see what Nick Pope has to say about this. It just seems like we haven't gone anywhere in the last 40 years. You know, that film came out in 1979. I was born in 78. So my whole lifetime, essentially, it seems like we're back at the same point that we were. So what is your impression? You know, you've been in this game since 91, 94, at least. We'll talk about the Calvine photo after this. But do you think this will be different? Do you think we'll actually make some leeway through these public hearings or otherwise?
Yes, I think we've got these are not the first congressional hearings ever, and there were decades ago, but I think Congress is engaged in a very different way now and has at its disposal, or rather is lobbying to get DoD, the military and the intelligence community to leverage the resources and capabilities that we've simply not had before. I remember when you and I last spoke, we talked a little bit about photography and things, and this probably goes quite nicely into the next item as well. But we talked about how in the old days the only ways of faking pictures were to suspend something from a branch with a piece of fishing twine, or to throw an object into the air, and now you've got the technology, and it's the same within government. But the point is, I think if I could say that two things Congress should be looking at, which give them the chance to solve this mystery in a way that they probably didn't have, when we're talking about some of these historical accounts, I would say it's the space tracking radar systems at places like the Ballistic Missile Early Warning Centers, Royal Air Force Filing Dales in the UK, for example. So it's space tracking radar and it's military satellites. And of course, that was the John Ratcliffe bombshell, which I don't know whether he made a slip or whether he did it deliberately to get it into the conversation and on the agenda. But when he, in that Fox News interview a year or two ago, when he just casually dropped into the conversation, UAP tracked on military satellite, and it was like bingo. And so that's why I think, these things do go in. They can appear to be going in circles, and sometimes it looks like we're right back where we started, and that we've, just stuck with the same old problems. But I'm optimistic. We've got the tools in our hands with the technology that we've not had before. And I think the tools, the resources and capabilities, the high tech that we have now, whether it's the satellites, whether it's the AI, to maybe look at big data and spot patterns and do all that gives me great hope for the next few years.
Yeah, and I have hope in YouTube, actually. I think just the way we can connect. I believe I'm not linked or tied to anyone. I believe I'm my own person. So I can make my own judgments and talk to people like you that are interested in this subject as well. I think so. You're right. I think we have different technology And that's why, honestly, I created UAP Society. It was a lot of work. It took a lot of, time away from my main channel, etc. But I think it's worth it to try and leverage that technology. I had a great discussion with Nick Pope. Check out the full interview on UAP Society channel. You can check that in the description. Nick was actually the person who initially broke the story of the Calvine UFO back in 1996 in his book. That investigation is ongoing right now. We touch on it a little bit in that interview. I'm focusing on it now, and Vinny Adams from Disclosure Team is also focusing on it. Hardcore investigation. So I am looking into that now. You should expect a deep dive on Calvine coming up soon on the channel. I wanted to leave you with one more quote here, just another little tidbit from the movie UFOs Are Real. It's just another fighter pilot, okay? It seems to be fighter pilots that come after they retire and have seen these things or have interacted with them, have some sort of knowledge, and they're coming free and speaking about it. And I just want to say thank you to all the pilots out there, ZF-18 pilot that recently talked as well, who have the courage and the guts to really come out and talk about this topic. I think it's very important. So I'll leave you with one more clip here from UFOs Are Real. Thanks for being here, everybody. Smash that like button if you do like this content, and then subscribe. You can always support me at patreon.com/Chris Lado.
One of the most active UFO investigators we discovered in our research is retired Air Force Lieutenant Colonel Wendell Stevens. Colonel Stevens spent 23 years on active duty in the United States Air Force as a pilot. He specialized in air technical intelligence and the design of advanced aircraft. He was a graduate of the Army Air Corps First Test Pilot School and at the age of 20 was a project officer on the P-47 fighter plane. During World War II, he flew in combat and was a test pilot. Colonel Stevens is still an active pilot. After World War II, he was assigned to an air base in Alaska where he debriefed B-29 crews who frequently described encounters with strange circular aircraft.
My first experience with a UFO report, personal experience that is, was when one of the crews returned and said that they saw a bogey, that's what they called them, up there that was moving at high speed at higher altitude than they could fly. And the crews later, I found out that they often referred to them as enemy aircraft or Russian aircraft, but usually bogies. And they tried to describe it, but it moved at faster speeds than anything we had. We didn't have jet airplanes then. Later we measured one that was flying 7,000 miles an hour, measured it on radar. So these clearly exceeded any of our capabilities in 1940, any capabilities of anybody in the world in 1947. On an average of about twice a month, I would get some kind of a UFO report, and they would see these circular craft, sometimes close, sometimes far, sometimes more than one. I remember a crew describing one sitting on the ice pack, and this is something we couldn't do. We didn't have any way to land up there, and they seemed to be operating in airspace without a visible support base. It took a fantastic base for us to maintain the B-29s, just to support them flying in the Arctic. I even had one crew describe one that they saw underwater that surfaced, rose off the water, and flew away. Now, this clearly exceeded any design capabilities that we knew of in the world. The B-29s flying these reconnaissance missions were equipped with a variety of cameras. At various times, they got pictures of these UFOs seen in the Arctic airspace on various of the cameras and sometimes on all of the cameras. At least this is what they reported. I never got to see any of it because we took the film cartridges out, packed it in a box, and shipped it off to Washington, to Andrews Air Force Base, where the officer was met by Pentagon intelligence and taken someplace. I never got any feedback on any of this. I never heard what they developed out of it, but the stories were fantastic.
The evidence goes back many, many years. Very exciting. We should see some major breakthroughs. A lot of stuff is going on behind the scenes. I'm extremely busy working on many exciting projects. I hope in the future you can see those. Thanks for being here, everybody. Come to uapsociety.com, join the Discord, or you can buy our merch. Our merch also helps support the channel. But just watching is great support. Smash that like button, subscribe, and go to patreon.com/Chris Lado if you want to support the channel further or get your hands dirty at uapsociety.com. Thanks for being here, everybody. Peace.